Okay, so have you ever, like, told someone about a memory you have and you're like, positive it happened one way? And they're like, no, that's not how it happened at all.
Oh, absolutely.
And it makes you kind of question everything, you know?
Totally, yeah.
So it turns out, like, maybe we shouldn't trust our brains as much as we think, at least when it comes to memories. And that's what we're diving into today.
Yeah.
We're looking at this paper by Michael Levin, all about what he calls, get this, self-improvising memory.
Mhm.
Basically, our brains aren't just storing memories, they're like actively reshaping them all the time.
Yeah, we tend to think of memories as these, like, perfect recordings, you
Mhm.
know? But in reality, it's way more nuanced and honestly way more fascinating.
Right, like way more dynamic than we realize.
Absolutely. Our brains are always taking our past experiences and reinterpreting them, restructuring them to fit with how we see ourselves and the world right now in the present moment.
So it's like our brains are constantly editing our life stories, like adding in a plot twist here, or maybe like a new character there.
That's a great way to put it. Have you ever heard of those studies where they stimulate a specific part of someone's brain
Yeah.
and it like makes them laugh uncontrollably?
Oh, yeah, I've seen that. It's kind of creepy, but also fascinating.
Totally. And the thing is, you'd think they would be like confused, right? Like, why am I suddenly laughing? But they often try to make sense of it. Like, oh, I must have just remembered a hilarious joke.
So it's like even when the experience is coming from outside their own thoughts, their brains are working overtime to create a story, create a reason that makes it all fit together.
Exactly. It's like this idea of confabulation. Now, it's not like outright lying.
Yeah.
It's more like our brain is trying to create a narrative that feels complete and makes sense, even if it means changing the past a
So it's
little.
almost like our brains care more about the meaning we take from things than about getting all the details exactly right.
Precisely. Our brains prioritize meaning. It's about adapting
Yeah.
and to changes around us, and even to changes in ourselves over time.
Hmm.
Think of it this way. Your past self is sending a message to your present self through these memories.
Whoa, I like that. Memories as messages.
Right.
But just like with any message, how we hear it depends on who's listening on the other end. It's all about interpretation. Like, even if we could get a perfect replay of a past event, it would still be filtered through our current experiences and biases and everything,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly. And just like when you're talking to another person, you don't have like direct access to their thoughts.
Mm.
You can only interpret what they communicate to you. With memories, it's kind of similar. You don't get perfect access to your past self. It's more about like interpreting the hints and clues your past self left behind.
Wow. So remembering something isn't passive at all, is it? It's this whole active process of interpretation and even like negotiation between different versions of ourselves.
Exactly. It's a constant dialogue between who we were and who we are now.
Speaking of messages and maybe misinterpreting them, how about caterpillars? Like,
Hmm.
if our memories are really about holding on to the meaning of things, not just the nitty-gritty details,
Hmm.
then metamorphosis, that's got to be a real head scratcher.
Oh, absolutely. Talk about a memory makeover.
Right. Right. I mean, the caterpillar basically turns to goo and then gets completely rebuilt. New body, new brain, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah, it's wild. And the thing is, there's actually research showing that some memories actually survive that whole process.
Seriously. So, like, what's the point of remembering what a leaf tastes like when you're suddenly a butterfly? Your whole world has changed, your senses, everything. Those old memories, shouldn't they be totally useless?
Think so, wouldn't you? But, and this is key, it's not about remembering the specifics. It's about what we were talking about before, the meaning. It's like instead of remembering, oh, this particular leaf tasted like this, it's more like this was food or this is dangerous. That kind of core information, it can be useful no matter what form you're in, right?
So, instead of trying to cram all those old caterpillar files into the butterfly brain, it's like extracting the essential knowledge, the survival guide, and translating it into butterfly language.
Exactly, remapping. And you know what? We humans, we do this all the time.
Wait, really? I mean, I haven't sprouted wings recently, but
Uh-huh, right. But think about it. Puberty. Talk about your system reboot.
oh, yeah. Tell me about it. It's like someone hit the shuffle button on your brain and your body and your whole life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Suddenly, everything feels different, right? Social cues, your own body, the whole world's a different place.
Mm.
And it's not just these big life stages either. Aging, changing careers, even just learning and growing as people, our brains are constantly adapting to these shifts.
So we're always updating our internal narratives, even if it's not as dramatic as, turning into a butterfly.
Absolutely. We're all in constant flux, constantly reinterpreting and remapping those memories to make sense of this ever-changing world and our own ever-changing selves. And, this whole idea of remapping, it actually goes way beyond our individual brains.
Oh, how so?
Yeah, it's a pattern we see all over the place, and it even has a name, Bowtie Architecture.
Okay, now you've got me curious. Bowtie architecture. Lay it on me. Okay, bowtie architecture, hit me. I'm picturing like an actual bow tie, and I am not seeing the connection to memories.
Okay, so think of it this way. Imagine like you have all this information coming in, right?
Yeah.
It could be sensory data, a flood of images, sounds, whatever. Or it could be like a huge library of memories, all those experiences you've racked up.
Okay, yeah, I'm with you. Tons of information all the time.
Right, so all that information, it gets squeezed through this narrow point, like a bottleneck.
So we're talking about like compressing it, boiling it down to the essentials.
Exactly. The best example, I think, is one of those AI things, what they call autoencoders.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they can like take a whole image and compress it down to almost nothing, right?
Exactly. They strip away all the unnecessary details, get it down to just the core features.
Right.
Then they can use just that little bit of information to rebuild the image.
And they can do that, rebuild the whole thing from like a tiny fraction of the original data.
Yeah. Often with even better resolution than the original. So you're getting rid of the noise, the clutter, and you're left with like this pure, concentrated essence of the thing.
It's like, I don't know, when you juice a lemon, you get rid of all the pulp and the seeds and stuff, and you're left with this like pure lemony goodness.
Perfect analogy. And just like you can use that lemon juice for a million different things, the compressed information, once it's through the bottleneck, it can be reinterpreted, expanded on the other side. And you see this bow tie structure everywhere, not just in computers.
Really? Where else?
Think about like how an embryo develops from a single cell to this complex organism.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot of information getting organized
Yeah,
really fast.
Right. Or evolution, how species change over millions of years. It's all about compressing, reinterpreting, adapting information. It's all bow tie architecture at different scales.
Wow. Okay. But like, how does this play out on a like individual level?
Well, you want to talk about remapping sensory information. Let's talk about tadpoles.
Tadpoles. Okay. How do tadpoles fit into this?
Okay, so scientists did this experiment, right?
Mhm.
They took tadpoles and they grafted eyes onto their tails.
Wait.
They what?
They put eyes on their tails.
Like extra eyes?
Yeah.
Okay, that's just messing with Mother Nature, isn't it?
Yeah.
What happened? Were the tadpoles like freaked out?
Well, you'd think so, right? But here's the thing. The tadpoles, they could still see. They were using those tail eyes to navigate around just fine.
No way. You're telling me those tail eyes, they were actually working? How is that even possible? You'd think their brains would be like, what is this nonsense?
Exactly. That's why it's such a good example of bow tie architecture. That visual information is still getting compressed, sent through the nervous system, and the brain was finding a way to make sense of it, even though it was coming from, like, the wrong place. So it's like their brains were like, well, I'm getting visual input, I guess I'll roll with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It shows how adaptable biological systems are, how good they are at taking information, even weird, unexpected information, and remapping it, making it meaningful. And we're doing this all the time, Think about language.
Okay, yeah, we're compressing thoughts and ideas into words.
Right. And the listener, they decompress those words, add their own interpretations, their own experiences. It's all bow ties all the way down.
Wow. Okay, so to wrap this up, we started with this idea that our memories aren't these perfect recordings, right? They're always being reshaped, reinterpreted by our brains. And now we're seeing that this whole process of mnemonic improvisation, it's not just happening in our heads. It's like fundamental to how life works, from our cells to evolution itself. It's pretty mind-blowing.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think it changes how we think about ourselves. We're not these fixed, static beings. We're constantly changing, adapting, reinterpreting the world around us and our place in it.
Absolutely. It's like this beautiful, messy, creative process that never really ends. So yeah, I think that's something to like sit with for a while. And hey, listeners, if you're ever feeling stuck or like you're just a product of your past, just remember, your brain is a master improviser. You're always capable of change, of growth, of finding new meaning in your experiences. So go out there and make some new memories. Your brain will thank you for it.